This is talking about 4 basic things. This little booklet right here is a freebie that we're giving to you. I wrote this recently, and I just really think this is powerful. Did you know hearing God's voice is absolutely essential? God knows everything, and He not only knows, just wisdom about what to do right now, but He knows the future. And if we could get to where we hear God's voice, it would just transform our life. Over in John chapter 16, I believe it's verse 13, it says, when the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, is come, He will show you things to come. Think about how priceless this would be if you knew what was coming. And I can truthfully say that the Lord has spoken to me many times. One time He told me not to get on a plane and not to go to a meeting, and the plane crashed and killed people that were on board. God has spoken to me about things that were coming against me. God has shown me things to do in advance. And I can guarantee you that a tremendous amount of the success that I've seen in my life has been because I can hear the voice of God. This is just fundamental. And the good news is that Jesus taught us that hearing His voice was not just for the elect or a select few, but it was for everybody. Let me start with these verses over here in John chapter 10. And in verse 1, Jesus was speaking, and He says, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he puts forth his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. Did you know Jesus spoke this, and He didn't say that this is the way it should be, it's the way it could be, but He said this is just the way that it is, that His sheep hear His voice, and the voice of a stranger they won't follow. Did you know that the vast majority of Christians today would say that their experience doesn't match what Jesus says? The vast majority of Christians do not, on a consistent basis, hear God speak to them and show them things and warn them about things that are coming. You can tell that by the way that their life, to me, it's like some of these little robot things that we have that they just go until they hit something and bump into it, and then they back up and go around. And this is the way that most Christians live their life. They just are going their own way, and only when they run into a barrier, something doesn't work, well, then they'll say, oh God, and they might have God speak to them then. But they are just like a pinball machine that you launch that ball and it just bounces off of things, and it just depends on what it hits and how it goes. That is not the way that God made for us to live our Christian life. He wants to speak to you. And Jesus said that if you are His sheep, you do hear His voice. And one of the things I'll be teaching throughout this series